The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars. Inside the grand chamber, representatives from 100 worlds gathered in fear. Ambassador Velthara stood at the center, her blue skin pale with worry. The hologram behind her showed system after system going dark. "The Void Swarm has awakened," she said. Her voice carried the weight of doom. 17 systems have fallen in 3 months. Millions are dead. Billions more will follow. The chamber erupted in panic. The swarm was an ancient nightmare, a species of parasites that consumed everything in their path. They had slept for 10,000 years in the dark spaces between galaxies. Now they were hungry again. Commander Zexler, a tall reptilian being with silver scales, watched the chaos with cold eyes. His people had fought the swarm long ago. They had barely survived. He knew what was coming. "We need allies," Velthara continued. "Every military, every fleet, every species that can fight. We are searching the outer regions for anyone who can help us." That was when the report came in. A scout ship had found something unusual in a remote arm of the galaxy. A yellow star, a blue planet. And on that planet, a civilization that should not exist. The planet was designated Class 12 on the habitability scale. This was the worst rating possible. Most council species would die within hours on such a world. The gravity was almost twice the galactic standard. The atmosphere contained poisonous levels of oxygen. Massive predators roamed the surface. The weather was violent and unpredictable. Earthquakes and volcanoes reshaped the land constantly. The oceans were filled with creatures that could swallow a ship. Yet somehow, intelligent life had evolved there. They called themselves humans. They called their nightmare world Earth. The council debated for hours. Some argued that any species from such a world would be too dangerous to contact. Others said they would be too primitive to help. But Zexler saw opportunity where others saw risk. "We are desperate," he said simply. "We should at least look." The diplomatic ship approached Earth carefully. Zexler expected weapons. He expected aggression. Instead, primitive radio signals welcomed them. The humans were excited. They were curious. They wanted to meet. The first meeting took place in a city called New York. Zexler stepped onto human soil for the first time and nearly fell. The gravity crushed down on him. His breathing apparatus struggled to filter the toxic oxygen. The temperature made his scales ache, yet humans walked around easily. Children played in parks. Old ones sat on benches. This world that would kill most galactic species in a day was their home. They had been shaped by this planet into something else. Something stronger. Secretary General Maria Chun greeted them with a smile. She was smaller than Zexler, but stood straight despite the crushing gravity. Her grip when they shook hands was powerful enough to crack his scales if she squeezed too hard. The meeting was brief. Zexler explained the situation. The swarm, the deaths, the coming darkness. He did not ask for help. The humans were too primitive. They had no energy shields, no plasma weapons. Their ships still used chemical rockets and early warp drives. What could they possibly offer? But Chun leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. "How can we help?" Zexler was surprised. "Your technology is not advanced enough for this fight. Then we'll use what we have," Chun said. "People are dying. That's all we need to know." The council leadership rejected the offer. Humans were too primitive. Their weapons were too weak. They would only get in the way. But Chun made a call to every nation on Earth. Within a week, 5,000 humans had volunteered. They came from every country and culture. Marines who had fought in Earth's wars. Engineers who had built stations in space. Doctors who had worked in the worst disasters their world could create. Scientists eager to learn and help. All of them ready to face an enemy they had never seen to save people they had never met. Zexler watched them prepare. Their ships were crude metal boxes compared to council vessels. Their weapons fired physical bullets instead of energy beams. Their armor was simple plates instead of force fields. But there was something in their eyes, a determination he had rarely seen. One of the human soldiers, a sergeant named Marcus Webb, noticed Zexler watching. "First time meeting Deathworlders, Commander?" "Deathworlders?" Zexler asked. "That's what your people call us, right? From the Death World?" Webb grinned. "We looked at your database. Your people think our planet is hell. It would kill most of us," Zexler admitted. Webb laughed. "Yeah, Earth's rough. But it's home. Made us tough. Made us stubborn. You need help against these swarm things? We won't quit until they're gone, or we are." Admiral Sarah Okonkwo commanded the human fleet. She was a tall woman with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She gathered her people before departure. "The Council thinks we're primitives," she said. "They think our weapons are toys. They think we'll run when things get hard." She paused. "They don't know us. They don't know what humans are capable of. They don't know what it means to come from Earth." The humans cheered. The sound echoed through the hangar bay. "They think we're from a death world," Okonkwo continued. "Let's show them what that really means." The fleet departed. 50 ships filled with 5,000 humans who had volunteered to fight for strangers. Zexler watched them go from the observation deck. He felt something unusual. It took him a moment to recognize it, that hope, that perhaps these Deathworlders could make a difference after all. Forward Station Kepler, 442, hung at the edge of civilized space. Beyond it lay only darkness and the swarm. The station was humanity's first view of a real galactic war, and it was not going well. Thousands of alien soldiers filled the corridors. They moved quickly, efficiently, following procedures developed over millennia. But Sergeant Marcus Webb saw something wrong in their eyes. Fear. Deep, instinctive fear. "They fight like prey," Webb told his squad. They were gathered in the human section of the station, checking weapons and armor. "Look at their tactics. Everything is about distance. Drones. Long-range weapons. They never want to see the enemy up close." Corporal David Chun nodded. "Makes sense. Most of these species evolved as prey animals. No predators in their evolution. They're smart as hell, but they've never had to fight something that wants to eat them." Lieutenant Jessica Torres joined them. "Command says the swarm hit 3 outposts yesterday. Killed thousands. The aliens are talking about falling back to the inner systems. Giving up everything out here." Webb spat. "That's not how you win a war." The reality of galactic combat was strange to human eyes. The aliens had incredible technology. Ships that could destroy planets. Weapons that bent space itself. Shields that could stop almost anything. But when the swarm broke through those shields, when the enemy got close, the aliens panicked. Webb watched a training exercise and understood. A simulation of swarm drones attacking a position. The alien soldiers retreated immediately, calling for drone support and artillery. They did not even consider holding ground. "Excuse me," Webb said to the alien instructor, a bird-like creature named Kears. "Why don't they fight back?" Kears looked confused. "Fight? The drones will handle it." "We cannot fight those things with our bodies." "Why not?" "Because they will kill us." Webb smiled, though it was not a happy expression. "They'll kill you anyway if you run. At least fighting gives you a chance." The humans began showing the aliens simple things. How to hold a defensive position. How to fight in close quarters. How to move as a unit. The aliens watched with fascination and horror. These humans ran toward danger instead of away from it. They taught techniques for fighting without weapons, for surviving when everything went wrong. Commander Zexler observed the training with growing understanding. His species were predators, rare in the galaxy. He recognized what he saw in the humans. The stance, the awareness, the willingness to engage. But humans had something even his people lacked. They had been prey too once. They remembered what it was to be hunted. That memory made them more dangerous, not less. The alarm sounded 3 days after the humans arrived. The swarm was attacking in force. The battle was chaos. Swarm drones poured through breached sections of the station. They were biological nightmares, all claws and teeth and acid. The alien defenders fell back in good order, but they were losing ground quickly. 3 sectors evacuated. Then 5. Then 7. Lieutenant Torres received word that civilians were trapped in Sector 9. The route was cut off. Command ordered them to write off the sector and fall back. Torres looked at her Marines. They looked back. No one said anything. They did not need to. Let's go get them, Torres said. Her platoon went into Sector 9 while everyone else ran out. The corridors were dark. Life support was failing. Swarm drones moved in the shadows. The Marines formed a tight formation and advanced. They found the civilians huddled in a storage bay. 30 aliens of 6 different species. Terrified. Certain they would die. We're getting you out, Torres told them to a translator. Impossible, one of the aliens said. The swarm controls everything between here and safety. Torres checked her weapon. Then we'll make a path. The fighting retreat took 6 hours. The Marines moved methodically, holding positions while civilians ran past, then falling back to the next defensible spot. Swarm drones attacked in waves. The humans met them with gunfire and grenades. When ammunition ran low, they fought with knives and rifle butts and anything they could grab. Corporal Chan's rifle jammed. A swarm drone leaped at him. He grabbed it barehanded, his Earth-evolved strength letting him hold the thrashing creature away from his throat while he drew his sidearm and shot it point blank. The alien observers watching through security cameras could not believe what they saw. These humans were smaller than many swarm drones. They had no natural weapons. Their armor was primitive, but they kept fighting. When one fell, another took their place. They never ran. Torres was the last one out of Sector 9. She had burns on her arms and a deep cut across her face. 3 of her Marines were dead. 9 more were wounded. But every single civilian made it out alive. ZEX, single quotes, Lar, met her in the medical bay. Why did you do that? Command ordered you to retreat. Torres was getting her wounds bandaged. She winced as the medic worked, but did not stop talking. People needed help. You could have died. Your whole unit could have died. Yes, but you went anyway. Torres looked at him with tired eyes. Commander, on Earth, we have a saying. Who dares wins. Someone had to dare. Might as well be us. The battle for Station Kepler 442 lasted 2 more days. Humans fought in every major engagement. They held positions that should have been lost. They rescued soldiers that should have been abandoned. They did not retreat unless ordered, and sometimes not even then. 62 humans died. Every single one died protecting someone else. The aliens began to understand. These humans were not just strong because of their world. They were strong because they chose to be. They had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day, and instead of becoming cruel, they became protective. Instead of learning to hurt, they learned to help. After the battle, Webb was in the cafeteria with Gormak, a massive Threem warrior who had fought beside the humans. Gormak was twice Webb's size, with natural armor and claws. But he looked at the human with something like awe. Your people are insane, Gormak said. Webb grinned. Yeah, probably. But we're still here. I do not understand. Why fight so hard for strangers? Webb thought about it. On Earth, we have a lot of predators. Big ones. They could kill any human alone. So we learned to work together. To protect each other. To never leave anyone behind. It's not about being strong. It's about being stubborn enough to keep going when everything tells you to quit. Admiral Okonkwo received intelligence that changed everything. The swarm's nest ship had been located. The central vessel that controlled all the drones across this entire region. Destroy it, and the swarm would collapse. The Council fleet began preparing for a siege. It would take months. Thousands would die. But eventually, they would win. Okonkwo proposed something different. We board the nest ship, she said. We fight our way to the core. We destroy it from inside. The Council admirals stared at her in silence. That is suicide. Velthara finally said. Okonkwo smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then it's a good thing we brought Deathworlders. The war room fell silent when Admiral Okonkwo finished explaining the plan. Every Council admiral stared at the hologram showing the swarm nest ship. It was massive, organic, and pulsing with hostile life. The idea of going inside, it seemed impossible. You want to ram boarding craft directly into that thing, Admiral Velthara said slowly. Then fight through it to reach the core. Yes, Okonkwo replied. Every strategic model says this will fail. The casualties would be total. No boarding party has ever penetrated a nest ship and survived. Then we'll be the first. Velthara's skin flushed purple with frustration. This is not tactics. This is suicide. Okonkwo leaned forward. Admiral, your people have been fighting the swarm for months using long-range bombardment. How many systems have you saved? The silence answered the question. We're running out of time, Okonkwo continued. Every day we wait, more people die. We can siege this thing for months and maybe win. Or we can end it in one strike. If you fail, we lose everything, Velthara said. If we do nothing, you lose anyway. Just slower. The Council debated for hours. Finally, they agreed. They had no better options. The human plan was insane, but the humans had already done several impossible things. Perhaps they could do one more. The call went out for volunteers. Humans responded immediately. Every Marine wanted to go. Every soldier who had fought at Kepler 442 signed up without hesitation. But something unexpected happened. Aliens volunteered too. Kears, the young pilot who had trained with the humans, was one of the first. Her homeworld had been consumed by the swarm. She had nowhere to go back to. When asked why she wanted to join the assault, she said simply, "The humans taught me that running is not the only option." Gormak the Threme warrior also volunteered. His people were natural fighters, but even they had never attempted something this dangerous. I fought beside humans at Kepler 442, he explained. I saw what real courage looks like. I want to stand with them again. Even Commander Zexler volunteered, despite his role as the senior council observer. When his superiors tried to stop him, he refused. These humans came across the galaxy to fight for people they never met. The least I can do is stand with them. The night before the assault, humans shared their culture with their alien friends. They showed pictures of Earth, blue oceans and green forests and mountains that touched the sky. They sang songs from their various nations. They told stories about their homes and families. Sergeant Webb gathered a group of aliens around him in the hangar bay. I want to tell you something about humans, he said. About why we are the way we are. The aliens listened carefully. They had learned that when humans told stories, there was usually a lesson worth hearing. Long ago on Earth, my ancestors hunted animals much bigger and faster than them. They could not outrun these animals, could not outfight them. But humans have one advantage. We do not quit. My ancestors would chase an animal for days. Just keep following it, never stopping. Eventually, the animal would collapse from exhaustion. That is the human superpower. We do not stop. A small alien named Plix asked, "But what if the animal fights back?" Webb grinned. "Then we fight too. And we still do not stop." 20 boarding craft launched from the fleet at dawn. Each one carried 50 humans and a handful of alien volunteers. The craft were crude missiles wrapped around human courage. They had armor but no weapons. They could not maneuver. Once launched, they would hit the nest ship or explode trying. The swarm's automated defenses opened fire immediately. Energy beams and living missiles filled the space between the fleet and the nest ship. 6 boarding craft exploded in the first minute. The humans inside died instantly, never even reaching the target. The remaining 14 craft continued forward. The G-forces would have killed most species. The humans endured. They had evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bodies could take punishment that would shatter alien bones. Lieutenant Torres rode in boarding craft 7. She watched the view screen as the nest ship grew closer. It looked like a mountain made of flesh and metal. She could see swarm drones moving across its surface like antibodies protecting a wound. 30 seconds to impact. The pilot announced. Torres checked her weapon one more time. Around her, Marines did the same. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. They had volunteered for this. They knew what it meant. The craft hit the nest ship at tremendous speed. The impact threw everyone forward against their restraints. Metal screamed. Then the front of the craft exploded, and they were inside. The interior of the nest ship was a nightmare. Organic walls pulsed with sick light. The atmosphere was poison. The temperature was wrong. Every surface seemed alive and hostile. This was a place designed to kill intruders, but humans had evolved on Earth, a place that tried to kill them every day. This was just another challenge. "Move out," Torres shouted. Her Marines formed up and began cutting deeper into the ship. Behind them, the other boarding craft were also breaching. The assault had begun. Swarm drones attacked within seconds. They came from walls and ceiling and floor, claws and teeth in acid. The Marines met them with gunfire and grenades. The aliens who had volunteered fought beside them, finding courage they never knew they had. Kears flew her boarding craft directly into a major nerve cluster and survived the crash. She stumbled out with a broken arm but refused medical treatment. "Keep moving," she gasped. "The humans taught me that." Gormak used his natural strength to tear through swarm drones that got too close. He roared battle cries in his native language. The humans around him grinned and roared back. Language did not matter. They understood each other perfectly. Commander Zexler coordinated the teams from his position near the center of the assault. He watched the tactical display as human squads pushed deeper into the nest ship than anyone thought possible. They established rally points, secured corridors, advanced methodically toward the core. The casualties were terrible. Entire squads were lost to swarm ambush. Corridors collapsed, trapping Marines inside. The poison atmosphere burned through filters. But the advance continued. Because humans do not stop. Corporal Chun's squad ran into a sealed door they could not breach. Swarm drones were coming from behind. Chun made a decision. "Rig the explosives," he ordered. "All of them." "Sir, that will bring the ceiling down on us," one of his Marines said. "I know, but it will open the path for the others. Plant the charges." They did. Chun waited until the other squads had moved past their position. Then he triggered the explosives. The blast killed his entire squad, but opened a route to the core for 3 other teams. Stories like that played out across the nest ship. Humans buying time with their lives, making impossible choices, doing what had to be done. Admiral Okonkwo led the main assault force deeper and deeper into the nightmare. Her team fought through biological horrors that would have broken the minds of most species. But humans have lived with horror since their ancestors hid from predators in African caves. Fear was familiar. They used it as fuel. Finally, after 8 hours of fighting, Okonkwo's team reached the central chamber. Before them pulsed the swarm's neural nexus, a massive brain controlling trillions of drones across dozens of star systems. Between them and it stood the last defenders. 10,000 swarm warriors. The elite. The strongest. Okonkwo checked her ammunition counter. Half empty. She looked at her team. 60 humans left from the 200 who started. All wounded. All exhausted. All ready. All teams, converge on our position, she ordered. We finish this now. From other directions, the surviving assault teams began arriving. Humans and aliens fighting side by side. They formed a perimeter around the engineers who were rigging demolition charges on the neural nexus. The swarm attacked in a wave. The final battle had begun. The central chamber was massive and terrible. The walls were made of living tissue that pulsed with sick colors. The neural nexus dominated the center, a brain the size of a building, wrapped in veins of liquid metal. Around it stood the swarm's elite warriors, each one bigger and stronger than the drones they had fought through to get here. Admiral Okonkwo's team formed a defensive line. 60 humans, maybe 20 aliens, all wounded and running low on ammunition. Against 10,000 enemies. The math was simple. They were going to die here, but the engineers needed time to set the charges. Someone had to give it to them. Hold the line, Okonkwo ordered. Her voice was calm despite everything. Whatever it takes. The swarm attacked in waves. The first wave died to concentrated gunfire. The second wave got closer. The third wave reached melee range. Lieutenant Torres fought with a rifle in one hand and a combat knife in the other. When her rifle ran empty, she used it as a club. A swarm warrior slashed her leg. She fell to one knee but kept fighting. A human medic dragged her back while another Marine took her position. That was how humans fought. When one fell, another stepped forward. Always forward. Never back. Sergeant Webb's ammunition ran out. He fixed his bayonet and charged. 3 swarm warriors swarmed him. He killed 2 before the third tore into his chest with razor claws. Webb fell but caught the warrior's arm. He pulled a grenade from his belt with his last strength and triggered it. The explosion killed them both. The aliens, who'd volunteered, saw this and understood finally what it meant to be human. Not to be fearless. Humans were terrified. They were all going to die, and they knew it. But fear did not stop them. Fear was just another thing to push through. Kears, the young pilot, was hit by acid spray that melted through her armor. The pain was incredible. She should have fallen. Should have died. Instead, she thought about her homeworld. About the billions who had died when the swarm came. About the humans who had crossed the galaxy to fight for people they never met. She kept fighting. Gormak stood over a wounded human, protecting them while they were treated. A swarm warrior twice his size charged at him. Gormak roared and met it head-on. The impact would have killed a smaller being. Gormak absorbed it and fought back with claws and teeth and fury. "We hold the line," he bellowed in his native language. Around him, other aliens took up the cry in their own languages. The words were different, but the meaning was the same. Commander Zexler coordinated the defense from a position behind the main line. He watched his tactical display as teams from other parts of the ship began arriving. They had fought through hell to get here. Most of them would die in this chamber. But they kept coming anyway, because that was what humans did. And the humans had taught them all to be better. The engineers worked frantically on the neural nexus. The charges had to be placed perfectly, or they would not destroy the brain. Just damage it, and a damaged hive mind would regenerate. This had to be total. How much longer? Okonkwo shouted over the gunfire. 10 minutes. The chief engineer yelled back, 10 minutes. An eternity in combat. Okonkwo looked at her dwindling forces. They would not last 10 minutes. The swarm was pushing them back. The defensive line was collapsing. Then she realized something. The charges needed to detonate from inside the chamber. Someone had to stay behind to trigger them manually. There were no remote detonators that could penetrate this deep into the nest ship. Someone had to die here. She started to volunteer, but Sergeant Webb's replacement, a corporal named Sarah Kim, spoke first. "I'll do it," Kim said. "Negative," Okonkwo replied. "I'm the ranking officer. This is my responsibility. With respect, Admiral, the fleet needs you. I'm just a Marine. This is what we do." Before Okonkwo could argue, 12 more humans volunteered. Then 6 aliens. Then 20 more humans. Everyone wanted to be the one to stay. Okonkwo felt tears on her face. Not from fear, from pride. These were her people. These were the friends she had made. All of them ready to die so others could live. "Kim," she said finally, "choose a squad. Volunteers only." Kim chose 11 others. 6 humans and 6 aliens, including Gormek and Kiers. They would hold the chamber while everyone else escaped. They would trigger the charges when the time came. The evacuation began. Teams fell back in good order, covering each other. The swarm pressed harder, sensing victory. But the humans had one more trick. They had rigged explosives throughout the path they had cut into the nest ship. As the teams retreated, they triggered the charges. Entire sections collapsed behind them. Thousands of swarm warriors were crushed or trapped. The pursuit slowed. Lieutenant Torres was carried out on a stretcher. She fought to stay, to keep fighting, but her leg would not support her. As they carried her past Kim's squad, she reached out and gripped the corporal's hand. "Make it count," Torres said. "Always do," Kim replied. Admiral Okonkwo was the last one out before Kim sealed the entrance to the central chamber. They looked at each other through the closing door. "It's been an honor, Admiral," Kim said. "The honor was mine, Corporal. Hold the line until the end." The door sealed. Kim and her squad were alone with the swarm. For 4 hours, 12 soldiers held the central chamber against endless waves. They fought with everything they had. When ammunition ran out, they fought with knives and tools and bare hands. When their armor failed, they fought anyway. Gormak died protecting the engineers as they finished the charges. He took 17 swarm warriors with him. Kiers died triggering a trap that killed hundreds more. Her last words were in her native language, but the humans understood. For home. One by one, Kim's squad fell. Fighting. Always fighting. Finally, only Kim remained. She was wounded in a dozen places. Her armor was shattered. But the charges were ready. She could trigger them now. The swarm warriors surrounded her. They could have killed her, but they hesitated. Perhaps even they recognized something in this human. Some quality that gave them pause. Kim triggered the detonator. The charges exploded. The neural nexus was torn apart. The central brain of the swarm, the intelligence that controlled trillions of drones across dozens of systems, died in fire and fury. And when it died, Sarah Kim and her squad. 12 soldiers who had chosen to stand when they could have run, who had chosen sacrifice when they could have lived. Across the galaxy, swarm drones stopped moving. The hive mind was gone. The war was over, but the cost had been terrible. Of 5,000 humans who left Earth, fewer than 3,000 survived. Every single one was wounded. Every single one had lost friends. The victory was real, but it tasted like ashes. Admiral Okonkwo stood in her quarters aboard the flagship. Around her were memory plaques for the dead. So many names. She would write to each family personally. It would take months. But they deserved that much. Commander Zexler came to see her. He moved slowly. His wounds were still healing. "The Council wants to give humanity medals," he said. "Honor your sacrifice." "We don't want medals," Okonkwo replied. "We want them to remember why we fought." "They will. The galaxy will never forget what humans did here." Okonkwo looked at the stars through her viewport. "I hope so. Because if we have to do this again, I don't know if we have enough people left to remember what it means to stand together." Zexler was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The aliens who fought beside you, they learned. Kiers, Gormak, and the others. They taught their people what humans taught them. The lesson is spreading." "What lesson?" "That courage is a choice. That fear does not have to win. That sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing." Zexler paused. "You called us prey species. You were right. But you showed us we could be more." 3 years would pass before humanity saw the full result of that lesson. But the seeds had been planted. The galaxy was changing. And it had changed because a group of Deathworlders decided to stand up for strangers. The price was terrible. But the alternative would have been worse. 3 years had passed since the Swarm War ended. The galaxy was different now. So was Earth. On Luna, humanity's moon, a massive memorial stood under a protective dome. The names of every human and alien who died fighting the swarm were carved into black stone that stretched for kilometers. People came from across the galaxy to see it. To remember, Ambassador Velthara stood before the memorial with a human delegation. Her blue skin was darker now, aged by the weight of command during the war. She had watched humans sacrifice themselves for her people. She would never forget. "We called you Deathworlders," she said to the assembled crowd. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds listened. "We said it with fear, with contempt. We thought you were monsters from a nightmare planet." She paused, looking at the endless names on the wall. "We were wrong. You are not monsters. You are what the galaxy needed. You came from a world that tried to kill you every day, and instead of becoming cruel, you became kind. Instead of learning only to fight, you learned when to fight. You fought not because you enjoyed it, but because people needed you." The crowd was silent. In that silence was respect and understanding. "You taught us that fear does not have to win," Velthara continued. "That courage is a choice we can all make. That sometimes the right thing is also the hardest thing." Her voice broke slightly. "Thank you for saving us. Thank you for teaching us how to save ourselves." The ceremony continued, but the message was clear. Humanity had changed the galaxy. Not through conquest or force, but through example. God, Earth itself had transformed. Ships from alien worlds filled the orbital space. Students came to study at human universities, learning not just technology but philosophy. How to face fear. How to make hard choices. How to stand for something bigger than yourself. The Interspecies Combat Academy on Mars was the most popular destination. Young aliens trained alongside human instructors, learning tactics that had won the Swarm War. But the most important lessons were not about fighting. They were about why to fight and when to stand firm. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, now promoted and teaching at the academy, stood before a class of mixed species. Some were humans. Most were not. They all looked at him with the same eager eyes. "Today, we talk about the most important rule," Webb said. "Anyone know what it is?" A young Tari raised her hand. "Never leave anyone behind?" Good answer, but no. A Threen student tried. "Always be ready?" Also good, but no. Webb smiled. "The most important rule is this: courage is contagious. When one person stands, others find the strength to stand too. When one person refuses to quit, others remember they do not have to quit either. He pulled up a hologram showing the battle for Station Kepler 442. The students had seen it before, but they never tired of watching. 62 humans died that day, Webb said quietly. But they showed the galaxy something it had forgotten. That fear is natural, but so is bravery. That we all have a choice in how we respond to danger. One of the alien students asked, "Are humans ever afraid?" Webb laughed. "All the time. I was terrified during every battle. But being brave does not mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing what needs to be done anyway." Captain Jessica Torres commanded a new type of ship. The CSS Determination was a joint human-alien warship. Half the crew was from Earth. The other half came from a dozen different worlds. They patrolled the regions where the swarm had attacked, making sure nothing like that ever happened again. The ship was a symbol of the new galaxy. Different species working together, combining human tactics with alien technology. They were stronger together than apart. The swarm war had taught them that Torres walked through the ship's corridors and heard a dozen languages. Saw 100 different faces, all of them part of one crew. One family daughter second in command was Kurz's younger sister, who had joined the fleet after hearing how her sister died. The weapons officer was Gormek's nephew. They served together to honor those who had fallen, to make sure their sacrifice meant something. Commander Zexler had become one of humanity's strongest advocates on the Council. His species, once cautious about Earth, now sent their best students to learn from humans. Zexler himself spent half his time on Earth, studying human history and culture. "I want to understand," he told Admiral Okonkwo during one of their frequent meetings. "I want to know what makes humans the way you are." "We're not special," Okonkwo said. "We just came from a hard place." "No," Zexler replied. "Many species come from hard places. Most become hard themselves, cruel, survival-focused. You became something else. You learned to protect instead of just to survive." Okonkwo thought about that. Maybe it's because we were never the strongest or fastest. We had to work together, had to trust each other. That became part of who we are. Then the galaxy is fortunate your world was so difficult. It made you exactly what we needed. But not everyone was happy with humanity's new role. Some alien species were uncomfortable with how much influence Earth had gained. Some humans worried about getting involved in more galactic conflicts. The debates were heated. Then the probe signal came. Deep space. Monitoring stations detected something from beyond the galactic rim. Signals that were clearly artificial, clearly aggressive. A new threat, possibly worse than the swarm. The Council convened an emergency session. The old fear returned. Would they have to fight again? Could they survive another war? The debate was fierce. Some species called for retreat, building defenses around the core worlds and abandoning the outer regions. Others wanted to investigate, but carefully, slowly. Then a young human ensign assigned to the council chambers made a mistake. She was supposed to just record the meeting. Instead, she spoke. "If there's a threat out there, someone has to face it," she said. Her voice shook with nervousness. "And if there are people who need help, someone has to answer. That's what you do when you have the power to make a difference." She realized what she had done and fell silent, embarrassed. Speaking out of turn was a serious breach of protocol, but the chamber was quiet. Every delegate was looking at her. This young human, barely more than a child by galactic standards, had just summed up what took the council hours to debate. Ambassador Velthara stood slowly. 3 years ago, a species we barely knew came to our aid when we were desperate. They did not ask for payment, did not ask for territory or power. They came because it was the right thing to do. She looked around the chamber at all the assembled species. They showed us a better way. Not to hide from threats. Not to always choose safety over what is right. They taught us to stand together. To protect those who need protection. To face fear with courage. Althara's skin flushed bright blue, a sign of strong emotion in her species. The question is not whether we investigate this signal. The question is whether we have learned what the humans tried to teach us. The vote was unanimous. The galaxy would mount an expedition. They would face this new threat together. But this time would be different. This time, they would not rely only on human courage. The aliens who had fought alongside humans had taught others. The lessons had spread. Courage, like Webb said, was contagious. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the flagship Perseverance. Around her was a joint crew. Humans and aliens working side by side. Behind her ship, hundreds more waited. Every major species had sent vessels. This was not a human fleet. It was a galactic fleet. United. Captain Torres joined her on the bridge. Fleet reports ready, Admiral. Okonkwo looked at the view screen. So many ships. So many species. All of them volunteering to face the unknown together. 3 years ago, this would have been impossible. The galaxy fought as individuals, each species for itself. Now they stood together. Because humans had shown them how. All ships, Okonkwo ordered. Prepare for jump. We're heading into the unknown. Stay together. Watch each other's backs. And remember what we learned in the Swarm War. She paused, thinking of all those who had died. Webb, Kim, Gormac, Kears, and so many others. They had given everything to save strangers. Their sacrifice had changed the galaxy forever. We are not fearless, Okonkwo said over the fleet-wide channel. We are not invincible. But we are here, and we stand together. That is enough. The fleet jumped into hyperspace as one, heading toward the unknown signals, heading toward possible danger. But they were not afraid. Or rather, they were afraid but went anyway, because courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite fear. The galaxy had learned that lesson from the Deathworlders. Now they would show the universe what that lesson meant. As the last ship disappeared into hyperspace, a message broadcast from Earth reached across the stars. It was simple. Just a few words. But those words carried the weight of everything humanity had taught the galaxy. We stand ready. We stand together. We stand for those who cannot stand alone. And the galaxy, once paralyzed by fear, now moved with purpose. The Deathworlders had saved them from the swarm. But more importantly, the Deathworlders had saved them from themselves. They had taught the galaxy to be brave, and the universe would never be the same.